There's nothing like that moment in motherhood when you realize I'm not doing okay and I don't know what to do next. I've been there, and so has the guest in today's episode. She thought she had all of the tools, but becoming a mom still brought her to her knees. This conversation is about what happened after that and how she found her footing again, slowly, imperfectly, and with so much honesty. I'm Krissy Bold. I am a stay-at-home mom to two young boys, and this is Mom's Guide to Finding Herself. There's this quiet moment in early motherhood. Maybe you felt it, where you're standing in your kitchen, holding a baby, maybe crying a little, maybe just numb, and you think, I know how to take care of this baby, but who's taking care of me? That's the space this conversation lives in. Allegra Gast has been there. She is a mom of 4 now, including twins, and somehow, after all of it, she feels more like herself than she did with one. Allegra is a functional registered dietitian and an international board-certified lactation consultant. She leads a team of 5 offering virtual support to families all over the world through her practice, Aloha Nutrition, which she founded while living in Hawaii. These days, she's raising her family, juggling the snacks, nursing sessions, and her team meetings. But what I love most about her isn't her credentials, it's how deeply she gets it. This isn't a story about bouncing back or getting it right. It's about slowly remembering who you are and letting that be enough. So if you're feeling depleted or wondering when it's your turn to feel human again, I want you to hear this. Allegra, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you with me. You have such a really fantastic, easygoing perspective on parenthood. I love following your account and I want to hear about your journey. You are so open in your social media and it's refreshing to see you share the good times, the bad times, the hard times. And I want to know more about where that all started, where that all came from. So let's start with talking about who you were before you became a mom.
Yeah, so I was a lactation consultant, an IBCLC, and a registered dietitian working at WIC. I worked at WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, back in Hawaii, where we lived, me and my husband. And I saw a lot of moms were around. I was around breastfeeding, was helping families with their breastfeeding journeys, and then I got pregnant with my first, and I was like, okay, well, I know everything. I know all about breastfeeding. All you have to do is just latch your baby, and things are great. But no, my first was very challenging. First of all, like my labor and delivery didn't really go as I had planned. I think we all think that we have this dream sheet, this birth plan, and sometimes it doesn't go the way we had hoped. So I went to 41 weeks and 4 days. And so I was induced and I did all the natural inducing
Yep.
things that you can think of, but nope, she
Yep.
wanted to stay inside. She's a
Yeah.
diva. And so I was induced, and I think just with the induction, the Pitocin, it was a lot on her little body, and she
Yeah.
had drop in her heart rate, and I tore, and she came out and was under distress, and so they
Oh,
had to take her to the NICU, and she wasn't like breathing well. She had to have this oxygen mask around her. And thankfully, she was only there for about 5 hours. So I actually advocated to do skin to skin in the NICU. And the nurses were like, well, we don't typically do that. She's got all these cords around her. And I was like, that's okay. I would like to do skin to skin. She needs her mama. So thankfully, they were able to do skin to skin, even with all the cords on her. And I would say within like 45 minutes, her blood sugar improved, her temperature improved. Like it was just amazing. And that was kind of the first wake up that to me, like, okay, she needs me, like she needs her
yeah.
mama. And so thankfully she was discharged about 5 hours after delivery, and we
Wow.
went to the our recovery room and tried breastfeeding. And I knew about positioning, kind of what I teach parents as a lactation
Yeah.
consultant, but she had a very tight latch. It was very, very painful.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, when moms say it's painful, this is what they
Yeah.
mean. Like, it is very painful. And she was just a very tense baby. And I had learned about like body work and seeing a pediatric chiropractor and, just releasing that tension. And so, and I had built a network of like other birth workers in my community. And so I did take her when she was about 4 days old to a pediatric chiropractor and who does like she's Webster certified. I was
Yeah.
working with her when I was pregnant. She does cranial sacral therapy, and that helped so much with her tension. But still, she was like clamping and biting. I had the cracked nipples. I had vasospasm, which is when your
Wow.
nipples turn white, and just anything
Yikes.
that touched my breasts hurt so bad. And I remember telling my husband, like, I can't do this. Like, I want to throw in the towel. Like, I can't. Like, it's just too
Yeah.
painful. It's just easier to pump. And so, at least on one side, I was primarily pumping because it was just too painful. Like, I had the toe curling pain.
Mm.
And my husband was like, no, you could do this. And like, I learned that you need a cheerleader. Like, you
Yeah.
need someone who is on the same page as you, because it is so easy to just say, like, no, I can't do this. And obviously, every case is
Yeah.
different, and you do need to take into consideration like mental health and their
Yeah.
environment and their support system. So that's definitely what I do with my clients. But yeah, my husband was very supportive. And anyway, she had a tongue tie, and I was trying to
Okay.
work through that, doing suck training. But by 2 months, like things just were not improving. And of course, I had a great milk supply. So she was
Yeah.
gaining weight, and everyone, the pediatricians were like, she's gaining weight. Everything's fine. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, everything's not fine. I should not have cracked nipples,
Oh,
and they should not be bleeding. And, I should not
right.
be in this much pain. And so we got her tongue tie release around 2.5 months. And that really just saved and helped our breastfeeding journey. And we
Right.
continued nursing to 3.5 months, or sorry, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And so, breastfeeding definitely improved. And I
Yeah.
think it really made me a better lactation consultant because
Yeah.
I could really empathize with families and just kind of advocate and say, like, no, something is going on, and just, really work on that suck training and releasing tension and
Yeah.
just encouraging moms, like, it can get better. So, like I said, every case is different. And
Right.
I also, as a dietitian, knew about taking care of yourself,
Yep.
but it's so hard when you actually have a baby.
Right.
And my husband was deployed when I was about 3 months postpartum, and I
Wow.
was not really eating breakfast. I mean, I was not focusing on protein, I was not focusing on myself, and I was so tired. And I only had one baby.
Yeah.
And right now I have twins. I have four babies,
Oh
four
gosh.
kids. But, when it's your first,
You have
you
no
have to
idea.
really
Yeah.
prioritize yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I learned, like, I should not be feeling this way. Like, I am, just having a struggle. And of course, I didn't have my husband with me, so I
Right.
didn't have that support. But
Right.
I just really knew that I needed to make a change with myself. And
Yeah.
so I started like making sure I was eating breakfast, even if that was holding her.
Yeah.
Maybe I would baby wear her while I
Yeah.
would eat. I started focusing on protein and
Right.
electrolytes, and it was like night and day difference. And
Wow.
see so many of my
Yeah.
clients and my followers on Instagram just starting to prioritize protein, prioritize themselves,
Yeah.
prioritize electrolytes and minerals. And that's a lot of what I advocate now on my platform. So I started off primarily focusing on prenatal nutrition, but now I do a lot of postpartum
Yeah.
nutrition because that is just so important. Like, you should enjoy motherhood and
Yeah.
have the energy to run around with your kids, like, especially if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, like,
Yeah.
you should feel good, even with lack of sleep. And
Wow.
so,
That's
yeah.
big to hear. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Now,
I definitely learned a lot from that first experience.
everything Allegra's saying reminds me why I created the Mom Identity Starter Kit in the first place. Because so many of us hit that moment where we think, I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't have time. And honestly, I don't even know where I'd start if I did. The Starter Kit is 3 mini workshops designed for moms like us who are deep in the thick of it and just need a place to begin. Whether you want to rediscover a passion, carve out a little guilt-free time, or finally follow through on something that's yours, it gives you the tools to do it in just 15 minutes a day. You can listen to it podcast style, read it in PDF form, or watch it in little video lessons, whatever fits your life. You can grab the full bundle for $17 at momidentityproject.com/starter kit. Now let's get back into the episode. It sounds like it. Now, I'm curious what made you become an IBCLC before you had kids? Because I know a lot of people,
Mhm.
after they have a breastfeeding journey and they've learned through it, they find like, wow, this is fascinating. I want to help other people. What led you there before you had
Mhm.
kids?
Yeah, so I was working at WIC, like just seeing the other lactation consultants help them. I just had this huge curiosity and just interest in nutrition and nutrition
Mm,
from the start. Like nutrition really starts with breastfeeding, with
sure.
babies and their health. And of course, like that prenatal, mom's health as well. And so I was a dietitian. I was, talking about nutrition, but it was really working at WIC and being in the environment of breastfeeding, supporting families and
Mm,
their breastfeeding postpartum journeys and seeing the other lactation consultants there. It just seems so rewarding.
yeah.
Like we would see moms work with the LCs at WIC and,
Mm,
they would work on positioning and
yeah.
all of a sudden mom was like, wow, that feels so much better. And
Right.
I just kind of wanted that too. Like I wanted to help. And thankfully with the military there was a scholarship that they were doing and for my husband's rank, and so I took advantage of that scholarship and put it towards my education to become an IBCLC, and then I
Wow.
studied for the exam. And so I was a IBCLC for probably 2 years before I had my first baby. And I would just use like other people's testimonials.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are like, well, how could you do that job if you didn't have kids yourself? And I'm like, well, how do male OBs do their
Right, you're
job when they're
right.
clearly never going to have a kid? So you can do the job. Like, so I feel like I was a great LC
Sure.
even before kids because I would use my education as well as
Yep.
the experiences of other moms and kind of just shared, well, this mom would do this and this
Yeah.
helped or whatever. But then definitely when I had my first, I was like, just able to empathize a little more. And then I started
Right.
showing it off on Instagram because a lot of times Instagram or just motherhood looks like it's all great and
Yeah.
easy. And I
Yeah.
really want to show the rawness, and especially with my twins that I just had, they just turned a year at the time of this recording. So I really want to show how hard motherhood is and just how important it is to take care of yourself. So, I've been in the thick of it and just prioritizing my needs
Right.
too, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's not putting your babies on the back burner. Like you're still obviously
Right.
taking care of them, but you're also taking care of yourself. So it's saying like me too instead
Yes.
of me first necessarily.
That's a great
Mm-hmm.
mindset shift and like a great language shift too of saying me too. I love that. Now, when you were working at WIC and you had your baby, did you continue working after?
So no, I actually left WIC and I left there probably a year before I had my baby, and did private practice. So I left WIC and I started my private practice, Aloha Nutrition.
Wow.
And then my husband, he's in the military. We left probably after a year of me having started my private practice. We were supposed to stay an extra year, but the military, if
Yep.
anyone's a military spouse, and so we left WIC, we left Hawaii, and we moved to Florida, and that's where I had my baby. So I was
Wow.
already in private practice
Oh,
before.
okay. Before you had your baby, you were in private
Hmm.
practice. Wow. So that gave you some kind of flexibility then for adjusting to being a new mom, to adjusting to a deployment during that, rather than having to figure out childcare.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, no, it was a huge blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like everything kind of worked out. And when we had moved to Florida, I was actually applying to different jobs. And because I worked at WIC, I didn't have any hospital experience on
Mm,
my resume. And so all the positions that were hiring dietitians weren't taking me because I didn't have that hospital experience. And
sure.
then a lot of the hospitals only want registered
Yeah.
nurses who are IBCLCs, and I'm a registered dietitian.
Yeah.
And so, it was hard finding a job, and then we had just moved there. So my private practice, it's hard to get established, but it all ended up being a blessing in disguise that,
Yeah.
I was not actively working, and
Hmm.
I was able to stay home with my baby. And then
Yeah.
just once you get more established, you build connections. And so I started doing more private practice work, and I did have a babysitter who could help me kind of here and there to help her. And then my husband, he would work 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off. And so I just kind of coordinated my schedule around his schedule.
Wow. So family near you?
No,
No.
no, my family's in the East Coast. So that's another hardship about military life.
Yeah.
And that's also, I've had to learn just over the years and having more kids, that you have to find your village,
Yeah.
get involved with your local community. I know with the twins, I ended up calling the neighbor one day because I was
Yeah.
just like, I need help. Like, my older two
Yeah.
are acting out. My husband's not here. I have the twins. Like, I just need another set of hands. And thankfully, my neighbor came over. And that's something I encourage all families do, because
Yeah.
it's not as common here in America to live near your family.
Right.
So many of us are away from family. And so trying to find a village, I know it can be hard, but it's important. It's important to reach out for help,
Yeah.
to speak up. I mean, I've had to ask in mom Facebook groups like, hey, is anyone available to babysit? And then, you interview
Yeah.
them, you ask questions, or even like a meal delivery service or a house cleaner here and there, just
Yeah.
to help offload some of that stress. So, it's okay to ask for help. We should
Yeah.
ask help. And I did not ask for a lot of help with my first. And I
Hmm.
feel like I definitely went through more mental, like, mood swings and just having a harder time. Whereas with my
Yeah.
second, I hired a postpartum doula, even for 2 days, until my husband was able to take paternity leave. And just
Mm.
those 2 days were like a game changer. So I think a lot of times moms feel like the help that they're asking for is forever, but
Yeah.
it can very much be just for a week here and there, or,
Right.
just for a month, meal delivery service just while you have a newborn and you're recovering from a C-section, or, a hard delivery, or even if
Yeah.
you didn't have a hard delivery, just kind of offloading some of that stress. So I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's just very much short term.
Those are some
So,
really powerful tips because I know it's something I struggle with is asking for that help because people aren't always going to offer it, but they're
mhm.
willing. Many
Yes.
times they're willing, or they're just waiting in the wings to see what you need, but they don't want to step on your toes or impose themselves on you. But you
Yeah.
like
If they say,
asking
let
your
me
yeah.
know how I can help you, say, yeah, I've got a whole list.
Right, let them know, but, like, reaching out to your neighbor, reaching out to Facebook, like, that help people want to be there for other people, and asking, I mean, they can say no if it's not gonna work,
Yep.
or, you're
Yeah.
not a burden, you're not overstepping, you're not putting yourself out there, needing somebody isn't being needy, and that's so powerful. Let's talk more about how your transition to having 2 kids was different than having just 1.
So when I had my second baby, my first was about 2.5 years old, and she was such a great big sister. She was
Oh,
so helpful, and she was still breastfeeding, so
yeah,
I tandem fed them,
yeah,
and that was a whole learning curve in itself.
yeah.
Like, once my milk came in and she saw her baby brother nursing, she wanted to nurse, and
Yeah.
so she was like eating 8 times a day, and I was like, okay, I am getting touched out.
That's
Like,
a
no,
lot.
we
Yeah.
cannot do this. And I learned that you need to put boundaries up, protect your peace. And I was starting to resent her. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to tandem feed. I just feel like there's something so beautiful about holding both of your babies. And I know
Yeah.
you tandem fed too.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of gives you a nice excuse to just both sit down,
Yeah.
you're calm, both your kids are
Yeah.
calm. But I definitely felt touched out. So we cut it back to only being in the bed, so only
Mm.
like at nap times or in her
Yep.
room we would nurse. If we were out and about and baby needed to nurse, like, I would feed the baby, but
Yeah.
not her. And that was fine. She definitely, had some big feelings. She
Yeah.
wasn't the only child anymore. I definitely had to take care of her brother too, or I had to just tell her, like, hold on, mommy needs to change your brother first, or,
Yeah.
do this or that. And I think it's important to know that as babies, they really just need that physical need. Like, they need to they need to be fed, they need to be close to mom.
Yeah.
But your toddler needs that emotional
Yeah.
connection. Like, you need to fill their cup. So I
Yeah.
tried to find activities with her that I could, like, baby wear my son, or
Mm.
during his nap times, I would really just spend time with her and fill her cup up and know that, like, I still love her. She's
Yeah.
still there. And so, and especially depending on what kind of delivery you had, if
Yeah.
you are bedbound or you just can't
Right.
move around a lot, like, get some books or some coloring books,
Yeah.
or even magnet tiles
Yeah.
or something like that, where you can just sit and, like, still play with them. So I did a lot of that, but that was still a challenge too. So every season is definitely a challenge. And now looking back, I'm like, that was so easy. I only had two
Right.
kids. Now I have four.
Now you
So,
have four.
you know,
Yes. Let's talk about the
so
twins. This is huge. Like you had two babies. What's the age gap between your youngest and the twins?
yeah. So when the twins were born, he was two. So I had three under
Oh.
three. And that was very challenging. Lots of
Um,
big feelings. I mean, we had just potty trained him and he was great. But then as soon as the
yeah.
twins were born, he regressed. He was pooping in his pants. And
Yeah.
there was, you know, a lot. My husband would care for one baby as I had the other baby. And I would hear the big sister, she was 5 when the
Yeah.
twins were born. She had just turned 5. She would like get a snack for for her brother, for Eli, who was 2.
Oh.
And, she kind of like had to just step up, and it makes me feel bad, but like there's nothing I could do. Like the
Yeah.
babies are crying and my husband's trying to get
Yeah.
them calm. And so it was definitely challenging. I mean, we did have some help that first month, but that first month the babies slept so well. And
Oh.
so
Yeah.
by like 5 weeks, that's really when things took a turn. They developed like their witching hour, which
Yeah.
from 5 to 9 p.m., they were just hysterically crying, nothing
Oh.
you could do. I would walk outside, like baby wearing both of them. And then my husband would be inside with the 2 kids. And it was a struggle. I mean, and I shared a lot about that on Instagram. Like, it's hard.
Right.
The adjustment to 2 kids or 2 twins are definitely a lot. And, just you're waking up
Yeah.
twice at night, or I guess double the time at night. But a lot of twin families always tell you to put your twins on a schedule. But those early weeks, it was actually helpful that they weren't on a schedule, because
Mm.
then I could just take care of one baby at a time as opposed to taking care of 2 newborns with wobbly heads. And you're still trying to figure out like breastfeeding with each baby.
Yeah.
So it was kind of actually a blessing that they weren't exactly on the same schedule. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it was a lot. I felt like I always had someone to take care of. Like,
Yeah.
it was still easier to take care of one baby than 2 babies at the same time. And they naturally put themselves on a similar schedule by around 2 months, 3 months. So if you have twins and you're listening to this, like, don't feel like you need to get them on the schedule, just like every Facebook group tells
Yeah.
you.
Just do what you can, survive. Now,
Yeah.
when two
Hmm.
babies are crying, when one baby's crying, but never mind two, all at the same time, your toddlers are going to get worked up too. And that's
Uh-huh.
going to
Yeah.
lead you to overstimulation real fast. How was
Oh,
your
yeah.
mental health through all of this?
Yeah, I mean, when the babies wouldn't soothe, you
Yeah.
had your toddler with their big emotions. I was crying too. Like,
Yeah.
physically, I felt really good, and I still prioritized eating. I was doubling my portions because I'm feeding 2 babies.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny because I was still also nursing my toddler. So I had
Yeah.
three that I was feeding, nursing, and we weaned him when he was 3 years old. It took a
Yeah.
long time, and I had a hard time weaning him because
Yeah.
he was having so many big emotions. And I felt
Yeah.
like that was the one way I could connect and really
Mm-hmm.
comfort him.
Mm-hmm.
So we continued nursing him. And then, so yeah, I like prioritized eating, taking my electrolytes, taking a good prenatal vitamin,
Yeah.
trying to get outside, really working on my circadian rhythm, like,
Mm.
controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
And so there were some times when I was baby wearing a baby while trying to eat, or my husband and I would
Mm-hmm.
like tag team, or I would let the babies cry
Yeah.
for like a minute while I quickly made a PB&J, or I grabbed a beef jerky, or if I knew I was going to be nap
Yeah.
trapped, I would quickly grab granola bars or something,
Yeah.
So I was okay with letting them fuss for a little bit while I fueled
Yeah.
myself, because if I don't, I get irritable, I get more tired, I get
Mm-hmm.
more snappy. And I did not want to be snappy, especially to my older kids who were already having a hard time.
Yeah.
So, definitely that had to be a non negotiable. Like, I have
Yeah.
to make sure I'm drinking, I have to make sure I'm eating. And
Yeah.
so, definitely my mental health was more from the overwhelm of just
Yeah.
balancing everything. And I think it would have been a lot harder if I wasn't focusing on my nutrition, because then not only am I
Mm.
living in fight or flight, but now I'm also not eating and
Right.
fueling myself. So I'm really grateful that I did that. And I made a ton of freezer meals during pregnancy. And so that lasted
Smart.
us, between that and our meal trains, it did last us about 2 months. So I'm eternally grateful to myself for making freezer meals. But yeah, the overwhelm was hard. And when both babies are crying and my toddler's crying, you really do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Like, which one
Yeah.
is fussier? Which one needs to be helped more, but
Right.
yeah, I recommend getting like headphones and just kind of blocking off
Yeah.
that intense scream. Like you can still hear them
Yep.
crying, you can still hear what's going around, but it helps take the edge off.
Yep.
And that was super helpful. So we used headphones, my husband and I. Thankfully, my husband had 3 months of paternity leave, so he was really there to help. And we
Wow,
had
that's
some
huge.
family come and go, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was a dark time. It was really hard.
I can imagine. Now, how
So,
did your relationship do through that?
we were definitely like roommates at the time,
Yeah,
but
of
we kept
course.
reminding ourselves, like, hey, we're on the same team. We're on the same team. And, with the lack of sleep and just the overwhelm, you do get a little more
Yeah.
snappy. And so I had to remind myself, like, don't take this personally. Like,
Yeah.
he's overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But we did try to always connect at the end of the day and just like, when everyone was asleep, just spend like 30 minutes at that, because
Yeah.
obviously we're exhausted. We want to go
Right.
to bed, but just like 30 minutes to just connect. Hugs were so
Yeah.
important too. Just something about like a
Yep.
good 30-second hug was really helpful. So sometimes in the middle of the chaos,
Yeah.
I mean, once everyone was somewhat calm,
Yeah.
we would just give each other a hug. And I felt like that really helped reconnect us and even just calm you. Like there's actually
Yeah.
studies,
There
and even
are.
with skin to skin with babies, like
Yeah.
just that connection helps calm you down. So we would just throughout the day give like
Y
even a 10-second hug if it was possible. But I mean, it's definitely hard.
Yeah.
You kind of are in that season where you are kind of just roommates or
Yeah.
partners, where you're just team members, teammates, and you kind of lose some of
Yeah.
that, like, what's it, like spark, I guess,
Yeah.
or like romantic part of that.
Mhm.
But, we do try to like prioritize it. And we had done marriage counseling beforehand. To us,
Oh,
that's
good.
really important, is
Yep.
just like building that strong
Yeah.
foundation. And so, there's also nothing wrong with marriage counseling and
Yep.
relationship counseling if people need that,
Yeah.
just to give you tools. We learned a
Yeah.
lot of tools that we could use during this stressful season. But
That's
yeah.
huge. Yeah, that's such a gift to both of you to do that. And then to get through the survival mode and just know you're because you cannot connect with somebody else. You can't even connect
Yeah.
with yourself on a certain
Yeah.
level while you're going through that. So while we wrap up
Mhm.
this part of the conversation, tell me, how are things for your family now?
Yeah, so we're a year postpartum at the time of this recording. We're going to be moving, PCSing with the
Oh,
military again
wow.
in 3 weeks. So
Oh my
things are a
gosh.
little
Yeah.
overwhelming, but yeah, I mean, the twins are a lot better. I mean, we don't have the witching hour, but now we have the tantrums. And because
Yeah.
they can't vocalize what they want,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like guessing, okay, what do you want? What do you
Yeah.
want? And because there's two babies, it always feels like someone is crying like
Yeah.
nonstop, but really it's just like one is now content and the other one is starting to get fussy. And then once
Yeah.
that fussy baby is content, the other one starts to
Yeah.
get a little fussy. So that's kind of probably always going to be a challenge, but
Yeah.
they're definitely a lot more enjoyable. The older two, love them. They're playing together, they're doing more independent play. And so, really fostering independent play is huge. And they're playing together. They're also fighting more.
Yeah.
So, sometimes they'll be crying because they're just fighting over a toy.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely better. That first year is definitely hard. But yeah.
Yeah, I bet. I don't have twins, but they're 18 months apart. And when they started wrestling with each other, I felt like a big sigh of relief because like now they're helping each other get grounded. They're helping each other with that sensory input that they need and getting
Mhm.
that through. So the fighting I feel like is obnoxious, but it turns into something really helpful
Okay,
eventually.
good to
So
know.
I don't know with my boys. We'll see. It's still really annoying. Let's not sugarcoat it too much. So tell us, where can we find more information from you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, aloha.nutrition. We offer nutrition as well as breastfeeding consults worldwide. We offer them virtually. And then, of course, my website, aloha-nutrition.com.
Allegra, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing your raw, real, honest experience with parenthood. And I hope that you'll come back for the next episode to share with us more about your insights on nutrition because we all need more of that.
Mhm. Yes, we do. Absolutely.
In the next episode, Allegra's coming back to get even more practical. We're diving into the real talk on postpartum nutrition, what your body actually needs, why grabbing whatever your toddler didn't finish isn't cutting it, and small, doable ways to start taking care of yourself again. You're not going to want to miss it. If Allegra's story has made you feel seen, do me a favor and share it with a friend who needs to hear it too. Follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple, scroll down and leave a quick review. It really helps new moms find this space. And come find me on Instagram at Mom Identity Project for more honest conversations like this one. Until then, take a moment for yourself, whether that's a quiet breath in the bathroom or finally eating a snack while it's still warm. And remember, you are an amazing mom just as you are.